the situation in Tunisia, the current situation in Tunisia is in fact part of my report on externalization of migration governance and its effect on the human rights of migrants that I have submitted last month to the United Nations General Assembly. States are increasingly shifting migration, asylum, and border control functions beyond their own territory, as the EU is doing with Tunisia right now, as a matter of fact, with other North African countries. Although such an agreement, often framed as cooperation or partnership, these externalization practices are primarily designed to deflect responsibility, strict access to asylum, and limit obligations under international human rights and refugee law. These measures commonly operate outside public scrutiny and without meaningful oversight. As a result, migrants and refugees are exposed to foreseeable harm while accountability is weakened or intentionally obscured. During last years, externalization has grown as destination states seek to reduce arrivals, deter irregular migration, and shift legal responsibility beyond their borders by outsourcing border control, asylum processing, and returns to countries with fewer safeguards. States can exert influence while distancing themselves from the human rights impact. These arrangements are often informal, flexible, and opaque, features that enable states to bypass domestic oversight and avoid full compliance with international human rights and refugee law. The EU and Tunisia agreement turned the situation for migrant, refugee, and asylum seeking in Tunisia into a nightmare. It has worsened due to the deepening economic and social tension and rise of populist and xenophobic rhetoric. Racist and xenophobic statements made by the highest authority of the country and other senior officials have fueled climate of hostility and discrimination against migrants. This stigmatizing discourse has been accompanied by increased repression marked by arbitrary arrest targeting activists and civil society professionals working to defend human rights and monitoring administrative pressure on them. Associate members of NGOs have arbitrarily detained, their bank account frozen, and their humanitarian activities suspended. The Memorandum of Understanding signed in July 2023 and the Tunisian presidency exemplifies this troubling trend by assigning Tunisia the role of Europe's border guard. This policy externalizes migration control while disregarding its devastating human consequences, makes the EU complicit in the abuses committed against asylum seeker, refugee, and migrants in Tunisia. The crackdown on civil society organizations working on migrants and refugee rights and the repressive wave is part of a broader context of shrinking civic space and growing criminalization of solidarity, characterized by arbitrary arrest and baseless prosecutions. These targeted attacks have disrupted essential services, limiting access to asylum procedures, housing, healthcare, child protection, and legal aid. As a result, large number of refugees and migrants, including unaccompanied minors, have been left in precarious and unsafe conditions, exposed to heightened risk of human rights violations. It is alarming. It is an alarming picture of the situation of migrants in Tunisia. Numerous testimonies reveal pattern of systematic violence, abuse, and exploitation, including rape, ill treatment, and torture, reportedly perpetrated by law enforcement and organized group operating with near total impunity. As a matter of fact, the whole situation in Tunisia prompted me to send several letters to the government of Tunisia, as well as I joined other letters with my colleague special rapporteurs, but we have never received a reply. It is deeply concerned that the European Union designated Tunisia as a safe country, a decision that denies the well-documented human rights violations against migrants in Tunisian soil and legitimize accelerated and brutal expulsion from Europe. And some countries like France, Italy, and Germany have all reinforced their return policy to Tunisia, often in blatant disregard of international law. Well, thank you very much for your kind attention.